So bench press. Again, what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of do a general overview of the bench press. This isn't gonna be some lengthy, in-depth technique video on bench press. There's a ton of those out there, some really, really good ones. In fact, one of my favorites is So You Think You Can Bench by Dave Tate. That's like a 7-video series. It takes some time, but guys, it's well worth it. That is a great video. Really what I want to do is just kind of talk to general population and my athletes as we get into another period of block programming. What I want to do is just kind of gloss over some of the high points, some of the things to do, some of the things not to do. And I got Austin to come in with me. He's another great example of an athlete that started with us pretty young in that high school, and then has kind of come up through and has become a solid lifter. Now does some coaching on his own and some things. So really good example again of somebody that was kind of raw, is now, you know, come full circle and is really, really good at some of these lifts. So like I was talking about in some of those other videos, possibly the squat video, I like to build these things either from the bar down or the ground up, make it nice and simple for beginning lifters or some of my young lifters. So on the bench press, I like to build it from the ground up. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about foot placement and where I want those. There's a couple ways you can do this. Kind of a square stance, or even a tuck, and we'll talk about both. So we're gonna look at first the square stance here. So he's nice and solid through here, and he's just gonna put these guys out here like outriggers. The key here is to have positive contact and pressure through the floor the whole time. If I come up and I move on these legs, they're nice and solid. His entire foot is pushing through the floor. This is a nice comfortable position for most people, but sometimes what we get is what we call kick out. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. It's almost like a relief valve in the lift. A leg goes flying out. Sometimes it's better to get into a tuck position on that one. A lot of my young lifters, I go ahead and put them in a tuck position. We'll talk about that. So the other one of these that we're gonna talk about is tucking the feet. So what he's gonna do here is he's gonna go ahead and get set in the way that he normally does. He's got his own little ritual. And then what we're looking at is the foot placement. So you can see what's happening here is he's pinning these feet back into pretty much a really uncomfortable position. That's automatically gonna start to engage these quads right away. And what he wants to do here when we initiate this lift is he's gonna drive real hard through his heels, pushing his heels down. A common mistake here is when I tell people to drive through the foot real hard, what happens is they wanna drive off the balls of their feet and then their butt comes off the bench because they're kind of standing almost on their tippy toes. So you can set that back down. What I want is pushing those heels through the ground super hard, and that's gonna engage these quads again, make that entire posterior chain nice and tight. Okay, so that brings us to the arch, the all-important arch. Kind of two sides of the fence here. A lot of people arch, no arch, whatever. So I'm gonna explain a little bit why we use it. And I'm gonna use the term slight arch. In powerlifting, I know you got this big exaggerated arch. Again, guys, that's a sport all in itself. Those guys are competing in a sport, and there's a reason behind why they do that. What I want my athletes and general population to kind of understand is that the reason for a slight arch is, number one, it's gonna keep his butt in contact with the bench as it creates that pressure through the posterior chain. He's got this little arch in here. What that is going to allow to happen is his upper back muscles are gonna be activated, pulling those shoulders back and down into the socket. That's not only gonna protect his shoulders and keep him safe, but it's gonna allow him to engage his entire back. We talk about those tight lats in the squat, but right now his lats are so tight, he's getting tired of hearing me talk because he's in this uncomfortable position. If you can stay down here, you're probably wrong. He's so tight in this setup through here that his butt's in contact and his upper back, his shoulders are being driven down into the bench, allowing him to get that solid activation, which is gonna create a really solid lift. That is why we do the arch, and this is what I wanna see. Not this crazy big exaggerated arch, and not flat back. If you're laying flat on the bench, one, you're unstable, and your entire being isn't being engaged here. I want floor to bar, core engagement tight all the way through that movement. Moving on up now, we're gonna talk about hand placement. Where you want your hands on the bar, and that's gonna differ lifter to lifter, big, small, and kind of within your comfort level. It's also gonna depend really on where you are more kind of muscular dominant, if you will, as far as your comfort level. But also now, that'll kind of lean towards why I want you to be in a little bit wider versus narrow. But first, let's look at his natural setup. So he's got a good solid setup here, and he's pretty wide. So what this is gonna do for him, this is gonna allow him to drive his elbows down and back at a 45-degree angle. What we wanna do is really avoid that dreaded elbow flare. If your elbows start traveling away from your body, That puts your shoulders in more of a compromised position, and you're also gonna lose strength there. So what I want is a nice wide grip. That's gonna give him more pec activation too. Those shoulder or those chest muscles are a much larger muscle group than the triceps. So if he brings his grip in, a little bit of a narrower grip, or maybe a little more narrow than that. Some of you guys are pretty narrow grip. This is really now gonna engage the triceps a lot more, and his triceps are gonna get a lot more of a workout versus his chest. His discipline's really gonna have to stay intact with those elbows too. As that bar comes down, he's naturally gonna wanna flare those elbows out. We wanna avoid that at all costs. We're gonna take a look at it again, but now he's gonna get that little bit narrower grip. For some of you that are in that natural narrow grip position, he's gonna take a look at it. We also call this close grip sometimes. We go, this is a really close grip here where he's set up, so I'm gonna let him go ahead and go with it. But he's gonna pull this out. Now you'll notice as he goes through the press, he's gotta keep his elbows super tight, plus the bar's gonna strike lower. And then we're gonna put that back in there while we talk. That bar's gonna strike lower on his sternum. It just has to, just because the distance from his shoulder to his elbow. That humerus up there, that's gonna determine how far he's gotta go down and back in order to keep his elbows in, so it's gonna strike a little bit lower. Now it's not gonna hit his belly, it's gonna be just a little bit below the sternum, and then he presses that up nice and tight. That was a good clean close. Now that we've seen the setup from ground up, I'm gonna go ahead and let him get in position, get his hand set on the bar, and we're gonna prepare for a single lift here. So let's take a look at it. He's got his feet set. He's pulling into that nice tight position. He likes this wider grip. I love it. He's gonna be nice and tight here. Those lats are engaged. He's gonna go ahead and bring it on out on his own on this one. He's got a slight pause here. As it goes down, touches his chest, it comes back up, and that's a solid lift. As you notice, he came out under control. Pause, lower the bar, touch the chest, press the bar, then it returns to the rack. He doesn't bring it out of the rack, drop it straight on his chest, put a hole in it, try to press it up out of there as hard as he can, and then throw it back at me. It is out, control, down, up, control, in. That is a good repetition on bench. The one thing I wanted to mention, I always tell my lifters as well, is make sure you're not too deep on the bench. If I'm in here as a spotter, it's a little bit of my job too to make sure that his eyes are underneath that bar. He doesn't want to be way back here with his head hanging off the bar or off the bench. I want his eyes right underneath the bar. I'm gonna go ahead and let Austin go through a set of 3 like we've been doing here, and we'll kind of see how this thing actually looks in practice. So he's gonna get set up. I'm out of his way as a spotter. I'm here to complement his lift. He said, oh, he's ready to go. He's gonna give me a 1, 2, 3. Here we go, he's out, he's under control. He's gonna give me a full press, full lockout. That's a good solid rep. There's 2 solid reps. He achieves that 3rd rep, he locks it out. I help him return it to the rack safely. His shoulders are safe, everything's good to go there. That is a good solid set of 3. So keeping in the spirit of what I've been doing here, we're gonna go ahead and show that closer grip or narrow grip as well. So same thing, he's nice and tight. He feels comfortable giving me that same kind of count out. Here we go, he's out, nice lockout, safe press, that's 1 rep, safe press, 2 solid reps, and 3, again, he locks it out. Spotters are gonna help him turn it in. Nice and tight setup, remains through the entire thing, breathing at the top. All good to go there. Solid. About a couple no-nos. Let's talk about a couple faults here, a couple things that you guys will probably commonly see in the gym or see some of your lifters do, or you might do yourself, and I'm gonna try to kind of give you the reasons here why we want to avoid those or how to avoid those. The number 1 on my list is definitely gonna be false grip, AKA suicide grip. In here, that is a big no-no. And guys, I'm highly gonna advise you not to do it. You're gonna see some older lifters do it, or some guys who've been doing this a long time. They're gonna give you 1,000 reasons of why it's better for the elbow or shoulder. They don't have that rotation, and it's just easier for them to do. Again, it's also an easy way for you to bust your teeth out or drop a barbell on your chest. False grip, what I'm talking about there is his thumb is under the bar with his hands. This allows for the bar to roll out. It happens all the time. The internet is riddled with videos of this stupidity. So again, thumb under the bar. All he simply has to do is wrap his thumb around the bar. This is gonna achieve a couple things for you. 1, that is a full grip. That's engaging that entire chain now. Try to grab somebody with an open palm. It's not a strong grip. This is a strong grip, and he's now engaging all of that. That false grip just isn't as strong, and it's nowhere near as safe. So again, good grip. And as he comes under, you will see no thumb. There's nothing keeping this bar from coming out once he gets fatigued or he gets under trouble. I've seen guys drop it on their 1st rep. So no good grip, solid grip. That is what we want to achieve on that grip. Another thing that you'll commonly see is what we call that kick out. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning. So as he goes to go through this lift, we'll see if we can achieve a bad lift here. He's going to bring it out. He goes to press it. As he gets under that tension, all of a sudden that leg starts to kind of kick way out. He's losing that footing. That is one of the reasons that we do that tuck. Sometimes you'll see that thing jet straight out there like a hunting dog or a pointer, just jet straight out there. If he loses that contact with the ground, one, he's no longer stable. Two, he does not have all that engagement. That is loose, unsafe, and an improper lift. My intention is not to do a really lengthy bench press tutorial. Like I said, there's tons of those out there. If you ever have any questions on where to find some of those resources, or you just want to spend a few minutes with me or one of my coaches kind of going over a really good solid bench press, never hesitate to ask for those resources or for our help either way. My intention here was just to kind of give you a nice little overview of the bench press, the reason why we do some of the things we do, and kind of clear the air on some of the information out there or misinformation that's out there on why this is a good setup versus this is a good setup. So again, I got to thank Austin for coming in, helping me out, and hopefully I got some more videos coming your way.